So you found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
Hey there YouTube, the Dapper Dinosaur here. Well, I'm back with more Genesis Apologetics, and sorry this one isn't animated. I think animating about every other one in the series is probably how this is going to go for the sake of my sanity and getting content out to you. Anyway, this time Genesis Apologetics is going to show us how little they understand about human evolution. Personally, I don't get why everyone is so obsessed with humans. You're not that interesting, but oh well.
This book was published in 1925 by Sir Arthur Keith, and now he was the president of the Royal Anthropological Society of Great Britain.
Well, let's see. I'm making this video in 2019, and that book was published in 1925. That's 94 years ago. Why is this relevant? Oh right, it's not. If Piltdown Man mattered at all to science in the modern day as anything other than a warning that sometimes people are hoaxers, then they'd have a more recent citation. But no, they're going to go with a nearly century-old book. Oh well, let's see what they have to say about it.
And the skull?
It was found in 1912. Now, it called Piltdown Man the find of the 20th century. I think it was the New York Times said that it proves the theory of evolution. There were like 500 articles published when they first found this. Then in 1953, they discovered that the skull was a fake.
Yeah, it was definitively shown to be a hoax in 1953. That's 66 years ago as of the time of this video. So again, this isn't exactly an aspect of the history of the theory of evolution that has lots of relevance to the science of today. But even so, while it wasn't proven a hoax until 1953, Piltdown Man was increasingly relegated to an oddity that didn't fit other data that was being gained at the time. And even when it was discovered, it was controversial, despite the hyperbolic headlines about it.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah. They took chemicals and they aged the skull. They made it look like it was really, really old. And then the jaw is actually from an orangutan. And the guy who discovered it, he actually filed the teeth down and made it look real.
Not quite. I'm not sure why you'd pretend that the identity of the hoaxer is known and that it was the discoverer of the composite skull. But in fact, no one knows who hoaxed it or really why.
What the heck were scientists thinking?
Well, they were thinking that a fossil that seemed to confirm some predictions of an already well-supported theory didn't seem too crazy. And since it was found in England, and nationalism was strong in Europe at the time, the British scientists thought it would be cool if humanity had evolved in the British Isles. But of course, when it was found, lots of scientists were extremely skeptical, and then they kept investigating because of skepticism, and eventually proved the skull to be a hoaxed composite. This seems like a pretty normal initial enthusiasm, followed by also normal scientific inquiry, that eventually led to the hoax being exposed. What would you like scientists to have thought?
Have you ever heard of Nebraska Man? Nebraska Man was the first American ape man fossil to be discovered, and Harold Cook found just a tooth.
Okay, so now we're talking about a tooth discovered 97 years ago, and the primate identification of which was withdrawn 92 years ago. Starting out really strong with some current science there, guys. And of course, just like the last thing you talked about, the scientific community was never overly taken with this find because it was so fragmentary. But come on, try to explain why a tooth that was never taken very seriously is a problem for the evolution of humans, keeping in mind that things that aren't evidence for the evolution of humans aren't by that fact alone evidence against it.
Bet that made for us some news and museum display.
Yeah, well, it was big enough for the New York Times.
You know what the New York Times has never been? A peer-reviewed scientific journal. Their goal is, and has always been, to sell copies of their paper. Despite claiming to be the newspaper of record, the New York Times is not a trustworthy reporter of science news. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it was even less so nearly a century ago when facts were harder to check, and consulting with experts in any given field for articles was even harder.
Okay, and then it went viral for back then, and the London News did a whole drawing on it from a single tooth.
Huh, the London Times. Is that a scientific journal? Let me check. Nope. Again, just a newspaper looking to sell copies. So far, you're presenting a find that's nearly a century old, and you're presenting newspaper clippings about it from that time as evidence that it is still important to the current understanding of human evolution?
There's still a picture of him on Wikipedia.
They drew all that based on a tooth?
Yep, there's still the picture from the London Times on the Wikipedia page. You know, the page that presents it as a minor find that was never taken seriously. You know, Wikipedia maintains pages on a lot of hoaxes, right? As long as they are historically significant or just sufficiently well known, then there's probably a Wikipedia page on it. There being a Wikipedia page about something doesn't mean that it's still a part of current science. There are also Wikipedia pages about the luminiferous aether and Aristotelian physics, but those aren't exactly cutting edge either. And yes, an artist who wasn't a scientist made up a picture based on pretty much nothing. A picture that was never published as part of any scientific description or reconstruction associated with the tooth in question. Artists can do whatever they want, and this particular picture was never taken seriously as a reconstruction by anyone in the scientific community, because it was obviously based on almost nothing, and wasn't even presented as scientific.
Yeah, but 10 years later, they discovered out that that tooth was actually from an extinct pig.
Wrong again. It was 5 years later that additional parts of the original skeleton were identified, and it wasn't a pig. It was a peccary. Pigs in the broad sense are members of the family Suidae, and are native to the Old World, that is, Eurasia and Africa. Peccaries are members of the family Tassaeuidae, and are native to South America and southern North America. They are similar animals and are sister groups, but they are distinct in many ways, most noticeably the growth of the canines, the number of toes, a more complex stomach than those of pigs, and suborbital scent glands in peccaries that are lacking in pigs. If you live in Texas or the American Southwest, you may have encountered the animal called a javelina. This is a peccary.
No way.
Yeah, so Piltdown Man was the popular proof for evolution for 40 years, and Nebraska Man was the popular proof for 10.
Do you mean 23 and 5 years? I mean, you can't even get simple arithmetic right. And neither was the proof of evolution, as if evolution, one of the best supported theories in science ever, rested on a single fossil. Both were never terribly well received, and neither was proof for evolution, despite the reportings of sales-hungry newspaper reporters.
Makes you wonder about what they're teaching us today.
I'm way ahead of you. Take a look at my little brother's 6th grade history book.
Really? Your brother's book? You have way too much time on your hands. Well, some of these ape men look familiar.
Long lost relatives of yours? No, I'm just kidding, but no, it's because they're in our book as well.
Oh, well, in our book, they say Australopithecus afarensis evolved 3.8 to 3 million years ago. But in the 6th grade book, Australopithecus evolving 4 to 5 million years ago.
What do you want me to say? That school textbooks always get things right? I don't even know what the publication dates are for those books. Although I can say that the 6th grade one is further from right than the one you say is yours, and is presumably meant for high schoolers. Textbooks aren't peer-reviewed journals, they aren't authoritative, and unfortunately they aren't kept as up-to-date as they should be, and are generally approved by people who lack the expertise to judge how well they do on such things, except in the broadest sense.
Uh-huh. Now, look at this. This is an old 1951 Life magazine publication.
Life magazine? Why are we looking at this? This is even less relevant than your undated and unnamed, but seemingly real children's textbooks.
According to this, Australopithecus lived 1 million to 500,000 years ago.
Wow, some magazine from the 50s doesn't agree with the current scientific consensus on the dating of an extinct species? Well, I guess evolution is disproved. Time to pack it all in. Sorry it all ended this way, everyone.
Thanks for watching. But before you go, I'd like to take a few moments to thank my patrons, especially my $20 patrons, Bob Knob and Rez Instance.
Wait, no, that's stupid. Why are we examining non-scientific sources from decades ago?
Wow, that's different by a few million years. These dates are all over the place.
Yeah, well, it gets worse. So this is our biology, the Holt biology book.
Okay.
And it shows Homo habilis as living 1.6 to 1.9 million years ago. But in the 6th grade one, it's 2.4 million years ago.
So which one's true?
I guess it depends on which class you're in.
Or, you could check actually current and scholarly sources on the matter, rather than relying on books for children from who knows when.
So what I'm wondering is if any of these dates are correct.
It looks like today's truth is just tomorrow's fiction.
Translation: the fact that science will update itself to conform to new data and thereby get closer to the truth, even if it can't reach it, scares me. Because it means I might have to change my beliefs with the arrival of new evidence. But I don't want to do that because I've been taught that if I don't believe in a flood that didn't happen, God won't like me. Well, spoilers, if God exists and he's just, he's not sending you to hell for accepting reality, and if he does, well then you're already wrong about him anyway. So it looks like you're in a bad way no matter what by not accepting reality.
If you look back at all the textbooks, they're all published at about the same time.
About the same time? What does that mean? You've been citing sources from anywhere from more than 90 years ago to more than 50 years ago. So to you it seems like the same time could mean almost anything. And were there any major discoveries between those times of textbook publication? I can't even find out, because you didn't actually give any dates. And quite frankly, digging up information based on a few frames of the covers of textbooks about what those textbooks are and which edition they might be is more work than I'm going to do for a point that doesn't even matter in the first place.
Take a look at my little brother's 6th grade book. Now this book shows all of the popular fossils today.
Okay, so here we are, Homo sapiens, right?
But check out what came before us.
Homo erectus.
Right, and while he had a human body, evolutionists like to point out that he had a different skull, at least a modern human skull. Now, the journal Science, back in October of 2013, they reported they found skulls in Georgia, like Russia. It shows how different the Homo erectus skulls can look.
Wow, they are so different.
Yep, Homo erectus was a very diverse species, and Homo sapiens is a very homogeneous species. In fact, H. sapiens has an unusually low genetic diversity among mammals, which is why most scientists conclude that H. sapiens suffered a genetic bottleneck in the past few tens of thousands of years.
Homo erectus and human skulls can be very similar.
H. erectus skulls are human, but if by human you for some reason mean H. sapiens, then some of them are more similar to H. sapiens than others, but none of them are H. sapiens, lacking some of the diagnostic criteria such as sufficient cranial capacity or chin structure.
In fact, they did a study on 202 modern-day Aborigines, like Australians, on the shape of their skulls, and they found that 14 of the 17 traits were the same on the Aborigines as on the Homo erectus skulls.
What study? Where? Which traits? And the fact is that while Australian Aborigines have robust skulls compared to the average for H. sapiens, they are not consistent with an identification as H. erectus, having cranial and jaw structure characteristics of H. sapiens. All of the sources I can find even claiming there to have been a study are on creation websites. And even then, they focus only on traits known to vary considerably between both species, such as cranial vault thickness.
So it looks like Homo erectus wasn't becoming human, but was already human?
Yep, along with H. neanderthalensis, H. ergaster, and H. sapiens. Generally, anything in the genus Homo is considered to be human, and unless H. ergaster is identified with H. erectus isn't ancestral to H. sapiens anyway. And even if it were, it's only a single population that gave rise to H. sapiens. All the other populations that spread throughout Europe, Asia, and the rest of Africa, and into the Pacific Islands, did not leave descendants.
Exactly. The next ape-man back is Homo habilis. Homo means human.
So you already know that all members of the genus Homo are human. Huh.
So they're trying to make him look more human-like than he really is. So Richard Leakey is a famous evolutionist, and he said, of the several dozen specimens that have been said at one time or another to belong to Homo habilis, at least half of them don't. But there is no consensus as to which 50% should be excluded. No one anthropologist's 50% is quite the same as another's. So they can't even really classify which fossils are supposed to go into which category.
It's almost like the transitional character of hominid fossils is so strong that it is stretching the artificial genus and species definition of taxonomy to near breaking point, since there's no way to assign a fossil to more than one species. Of course, this is just creationists now complaining that there are too many intermediate fossils, and that the fossils are so strongly intermediate that it's hard to put them into nice little boxes. You can't really win with creationists. On the one hand, they'll say that there are no transitionals. Then, when they can't really say that because of how many there are, they'll complain that those fossils are so transitional that they can't put them into neat little boxes of human and not human.
In fact, some scientists are fighting to have Homo habilis reclassified as Australopithecus.
Yeah, because it's so transitional that it's not clear which of the two artificially defined genera it should be in. I mean, are you trying to make the case for or against evolution? Because complaining that a fossil is too intermediate for evolution to be true doesn't really make any sense.
Which one?
Australopithecus is Lucy.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of her.
Yeah,
Lucy was a single individual of one Australopithecus species of several. She's not the example of Australopithecus.
Now, Donald Johanson, 1973, discovered just the shin and the leg bone. Now, the way they line up makes scientists think that she could walk upright. And there's a picture of her.
Wow, there's a lot of her missing.
Not really. Apes, like most bilaterians, are very symmetrical. And so because different parts are missing on different sides, we actually have most of the skeleton of Lucy. It's true that if you ignore this symmetry, then we have less than half of her. But since scientists are generally not great fools, they neither ignore symmetry nor choose the cup with deadly iocane powder in it.
Hey, at least it's more than a tooth.
It's true.
You want to see the fragments of the skull that they found?
Sure.
All right, wait for it. Booyah.
Wow,
That's what they found.
not that much.
Yeah, when you put skull fragments of a small skull in a bag, they don't take up a lot of volume. But if you know how to put a skull together, you can see that that's actually a pretty significant portion of the skull. And of course, Lucy isn't the only specimen of Australopithecus afarensis that is known to science. And some of them have much more complete skulls.
Man, there's a lot of skulls in here. Was your grandpa a witch doctor?
No, it was a yard sailor. Now, looky what we have here.
A reconstruction based on a fossil and an overexposed mess of white pixels?
We have here a modern bonobo monkey skull, and we have Lucy. So the brown pieces are the actual fragments of Lucy's skull that they found.
Yup, reconstructed with data from other A. afarensis skulls, not just Lucy. Go on.
Well, they look so alike.
Yup, bonobos have a pretty stock standard basal hominid skull, whereas humans have rather derived and unusual skulls. Unsurprisingly, the earliest members of the human line are rather basal, as you'd expect. So again, is Lucy too transitional? Is that the problem?
Her brain is only a third the size of a modern human's, about the average chimp brain size, and she only stood about 3.5 feet tall.
Yup, Lucy is pretty close to the common ancestor of Pan and Homo. Good job figuring that one out. Not sure why you think this would be a problem for evolution, since that's exactly the sort of thing that was predicted by evolution.
Take a look at the way that Lucy has been portrayed in the media, books and films, online.
Oh, she's been portrayed as an upright walking basal hominid? Seems about right. Although I noticed that at least one of those reconstructions was of a male Australopithecus, and so definitely wasn't Lucy.
Wow,
Everywhere.
they really went out of their way to make her look human-like.
Not particularly. She's covered in thicker hair than typical for humans, but more in line with the still sparse hair of chimpanzees and bonobos. She has a flat nose, heavy brow ridges, no defined chin, etc. The only particularly human aspect of her is her upright walking, which is known to be accurate. All the other things that make her seem human are actually just part of being a great ape, and are common to all great apes, including humans, since humans are great apes.
Take a look in our other biology book.
Oh, wow. Hey, look at the whites of those eyes. You know, I've been to a lot of different zoos, and I've seen a lot of different apes, and each of them have completely brown eyes.
While white sclerae are a near universal characteristic of human eyes, other apes also have them. See? These are all the eyes of non-human apes. There's no way to know for sure what color Lucy's eyes would have been, but it's not unreasonable that A. afarensis might have had a higher proportion of white sclerae than seen in other apes, since modern humans are nearly all that way. It's speculative, but not really misleading.
And not the eye whites that us humans have. Man, it even looks like she's thinking about something.
Yeah, bananas. I don't think they found any eyeball fossils, but if you wanted to make an ape man look more human, changing the colors of the eye whites in pictures is a good way to do it.
That's true.
Here's a picture of what she probably looked like.
No, that's a picture from the Creation Museum, owned and operated by Ken Ham's Answers in Genesis organization. And while I can't fault the color used, the posture for that reconstruction is completely wrong. Lucy could not have knuckle walked like that reconstruction, and this is even more clear when one takes into account the other fossil finds of her species.
Man, what a difference.
Yeah, well, they do say they have found several complete skeletons of the Australopithecus, though not specifically Lucy.
Wait, so you're aware that Lucy is just one early find of many? Then why have you been treating her like she's all we know of the genus? This is an example of why I think professional creationists are dishonest.
They found around 362 actual specimens from the species Australopithecus, specifically Lucy. However, Charles Oxnard said, the Australopithecines known over the last several decades are now irrevocably removed from a place in the evolution of human bipedalism. All this should make us wonder about the usual presentation of human evolution in introductory textbooks.
Hey, a quote without a reference, meaning I just had to spend like a half hour digging through creationist websites, Amazon, JSTOR, etc. just to find out that this is from an out-of-print book from 1988, not even a paper, which I at least could have accessed online. But no, a book that has no digital edition. Nice. But even so, I know it's from The Order of Man, a biomathematical anatomy of primates, and Oxnard's claim is simply that Australopithecines were not directly ancestral to the genus Homo, but they are a basically branching sister group to it. His views have largely been displaced as more and more early Homo and late Australopithecine finds have been unearthed.
Well, now you understand why I've been digging through this chest. I mean, really, the way it looks is that Lucy's just an extinct ape.
And you're just a living ape. But she's an extinct ape that, while still rather basal, shares some important traits with you, and is in a line of apes showing more and more distinctly human traits.
I'm kind of feeling angry. Like I've been duped.
Same thing with Neanderthals. Check out these illustrations that came out after they started finding Neanderthal fossils. Check this one out. This was published in the Illustrated London News about 100 years ago.
Newsflash, century-old paleo art isn't accurate. I feel like most people knew this already, but whatever.
Whoa. Okay, that's pretty brutish.
Now, do you want to know what they think he looks like now?
Sure.
Gee, a species of humans that's extremely closely related to Homo sapiens looked a whole lot like H. sapiens? It's just what we'd expect based on evolution, so evolution must be false.
Wow.
Just recently, scientists have discovered that Neanderthals buried their dead. They worked with tools, they wore makeup, they controlled fire, and they even found in a cave in Israel that Neanderthals and humans were living together and building families together.
Yeah, they were humans, and a sister group to your species. It's not really far-fetched to think that they shared a lot of similarities with your species, although in recent years some of those things, like makeup and ritual burial of the dead, have come into question.
Okay, you know what? That settles it. If they can live together, and if they have children together, then Neanderthals are just humans, but the difference is that their appearance varies.
Yeah, they're just humans. Humans of a different species, and the reproductive compatibility with H. sapiens is exaggerated. Based on the complete lack of evidence of a Neanderthal Y chromosome ever being passed to any hybrid offspring, it seems like only some Homo sapiens Neanderthal crosses were viable. And it may have been the case that Generation 1 hybrids were of only limited fertility, and perhaps more fertile with one species than the other. Closely related species usually have some form of limited interfertility. You know, another one of those predictions of evolution.
Just like different people groups today can vary.
Yes, but we have the DNA of Homo neanderthalensis. They were not just variant Homo sapiens.
So either these fossils are completely human, or completely ape with nothing in between.
No, they're all completely ape, because humans are completely 100% apes, just like they're 100% primates, 100% mammals, 100% vertebrates, etc. And some of them are humans, in that they're in the genus Homo. But here's a lineup of skulls in the human lineage. Tell me where there's a line between human and not human. How did you make that determination?
Now, a specimen is basically any piece of bone, including teeth, that they find. All the specimens from all the different ape men that they've actually found, you can fit them in the back of a small pickup truck.
I have no idea how you determine this. But so what? You can fit the bones of a lot of animals in a pickup truck bed if the bones are broken and you pack them well. This doesn't mean we don't have plenty of evidence to reconstruct hundreds of individuals and dozens of species very well. We can and do, and they show the predicted transitional features expected by evolution. Well, after this they just start talking about the Genesis account and a passage from 1 Corinthians, but this isn't a channel about biblical education, so that's it for me for now. There's more to come from Genesis Apologetics, though.
Thanks for watching. But before you go, I'd like to take a few moments to thank my patrons, especially my $20 patrons, Bob Knob, and Res Instance. All of my patrons are helping me produce these videos by helping me get better equipment and software. If you'd like to help, head over to my Patreon. I have tiers starting as low as $1 a month, and every bit helps. If a monthly donation isn't right for you, but you still want to help, please visit my merch store or my Amazon wishlist. All links are in the description. Even if you can't help monetarily, your reviews and comments help more than you know. So please, if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you always know when there's new Dapper Dino content. Again, thanks for watching. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur.
So you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that this happens? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.